That's true. Seeing if I can position myself so that I can see you all. I don't think I can quite do it unless I move around. So if I start doing this, it's because I want to see you all. Are we leaving that door open deliberately? No? Okay.
Would you like us to move?
No? No. I think it's just an impossibility in a space like this to see everyone at the same time. Hello all. Thanks for coming. It's lovely to see some familiar faces, people I know, people I've known for years, and new faces as well. I don't want to be doing this book launch. I didn't want to write this book. So it's a strange kind of launch. If you've read any of the poems already in this book, through social media or newsletters, hello Jane, come on in. You'll know what a lot of the subject matter is, if not all. I want to write poems about nature. I want to write poems about wonder and the infinite beauty and complexity of the soul, not about genocide or my attempt, or writing about my attempts to write about genocide. I don't want to write about desecration. I don't want to write about the wider war against the earth, against life force. I don't want to write another word about what I call the devourer. But here we are. And a book launch is usually a celebratory affair. It's like we come together, and certainly for the author, it's usually a chance to actually see some people, which is always nice if you're a writer, because we tend to spend a lot of time sitting on our bums, not even sitting in cafes anymore, but just in front of our laptops at home, writing away. And so seeing people is nice. And so I'm not quite sure what to do with this occasion. I've approached it and imagined it in a number of different ways. And it's fair to say I'm going to read some poems from the book. I might read some other older poems, if that feels like a good thing. But I've set it up here with another chair here. And this isn't a symbolic chair. I could put a symbolic chair for absent people, all sorts of absent people. People I know in Gaza, for example, who can't be here or who have been killed since I started writing this book. But actually, some of you have known me for quite a long time now and have seen me do various things. You've seen me in the position of being a showman, telling stories in all sorts of places, and being the big man on stage doing that kind of thing. Was anyone here for the Josh Schrei thing? A few of you were here. Yeah, I spoke about my discomfort about being on the stage, kind of dispensing information or wisdom adjacent, pseudo-wisdom on that occasion. What I'm much more interested in these days is having conversations. And that's not a false humility. It's actually a lot more comfortable for me having conversations than talking about stuff. I'm not sure what good talking about stuff does for anyone anyway. But I figure that we come to these kind of things partly, bless your hearts, to support writers, to support a book going out into the world, but also because we want to be reminded of some of the things that we hold dear, that we believe are to be found in that work. Excuse me. So this chair is so that we can have conversation. If anyone at any point has a question that they would like to be in conversation about, rather than just asking a question and then me going blah 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 blah, blah, I think about all this about it, then you can come up and be in this chair. And I don't know whether that will work, but we can have a little conversation, and then you can go away, or you can just sit there, because. Because, yeah, this isn't a normal book, and these aren't normal times, and really isn't a normal book launch. I should also, for complete transparency, say that I've just got back from being in a field without a phone for a week in Bedfordshire on a kind of 8 Shields Art of Mentoring Nature Connection camp with Rosie and the boys. And I've not been in the world of promoting books, promoting events, doing all the things that you have to do. And I had a lot of very genuine interactions and conversations while I was there. And so it feels more fitting to have that kind of style of thing rather than some kind of performance. Is that okay with you all? Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you really want a kind of performance thing, then I don't know, I'll have to direct you to some YouTube videos of me doing performance type things. So I'm going to read some poems. We'll probably have a little break in the middle because, you know, I eat, drink, sleep, walk, live poetry. It's the air or the water that I move or swim in, and I'm kind of slightly inured to some of the come in, find a place. There's space here at the front if you're feeling bold as well. Yeah. I was just explaining that this isn't really a normal poetry launch, and that I've got an empty chair here. If at any point you have a burning question, you can come up and sit in the chair and we can have a conversation, rather than doing a big kind of performance thing. We are also being recorded on there, and that's being live streamed to the rest of the world, and there are people all over the world tuning in, and bless you all for doing that. That's really lovely. But yeah, I'm going to read some poems, and we're going to have a little break in the middle because I don't want to overload you with poetry, especially the poetry in this book. It's strong, you know. I hope it's strong. If it's not strong, then I have failed. But also, obviously, the subject matter of this book is powerful stuff, and I don't want to just pile it on. So if you're getting overloaded by it and you feel like your poetry antennae are being crushed by the amount of poetry, then let me know. Yeah. What other caveats and clauses and settings can I give you? The last book launch I remember doing in person was at Craftmongers in Ashburton. And I think it was only about 3 years ago. But
Less.
Was it less? Yeah, really. It feels like a lifetime ago. I feel like I was still a kind of cocky young man somehow. And I just feel a bit more kind of beaten and broken since then. So yeah, there's going to be a different feeling to this. I'm going to start with 2 poems that aren't even mine. I'm going to start with one William Stafford poem. William Stafford, if you don't know much of his story, American poet. He was a conscientious objector in the Second World War, and so was sent off to a labor camp where they had to get up at, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning or something to work 12-hour days logging. And so he and his poet friends would get up like an hour and a half or so before that to write poetry. And whenever I'm feeling particularly lazy, I remember that. And I don't always get up and start writing poetry, but it does keep me a bit focused on what you can do. He was incredibly prolific, wrote poetry pretty much every day. And when asked just how he managed to produce so many poems, or how someone else could do that, he just said, lower your standards. Which is pretty good advice. You get a lot of poetry written. Anyway, his poetry is extraordinary, but this one feels like a good kind of scene setter to start with. It's called A Ritual to Read to Each Other, and I'm sure some of you know it already. If you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. For there is many a small betrayal in the mind, a shrug that lets the fragile sequence break, sending with shouts the horrible errors of childhood, storming out to play through the broken dike. And as elephants parade holding each elephant's tail, but if one wanders, the circus won't find the park. I call it cruel, and maybe the root of all cruelty, to know what occurs, but not recognize the fact. And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote, important region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we should consider lest the parade of our mutual life get lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no, or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep. So William Stafford really exhorting us to speak clearly and to speak truly. What does he say? To know what occurs and not recognize the fact. Okay. And the other poem I read for the first time out loud in Totnes at the first gig for Gaza in, I think it was December 2023. And it's by a poet that many of you, I'm sure, know by now, Musab Abu Toha, Palestinian poet, who's been an incredible spokesperson and voice advocating for Palestinian rights and kind of keeping on writing and telling the truth about Gaza. Things you may find hidden in my ear. 1. When you open my ear, touch it gently. My mother's voice lingers somewhere inside. Her voice is the echo that helps me recover equilibrium when I feel dizzy during my attentiveness. You may encounter songs in Arabic, poems in English I recite to myself, or a song I chant to the chirping birds in our backyard. When you stitch the cut, don't forget to put all these back in my ear. Put them back in order, as you would do with the books on your shelf. 2. The drone's buzzing sound, the roar of an F-16, the screams of bombs falling on houses, on fields and on bodies, of rockets flying away. Rid my tiny ear canal of them all. Spray the perfume of your smiles on the incision. Inject the song of life into my veins to wake me up. Gently beat the drum so my mind may dance with yours, my doctor, day and night. Things you may find hidden in my ear. That's from 2022. So I'm going to read a bit of the introduction to MOLOK next. Come in. Come on in.
Could you be just a tad louder?
A tad louder. Do you want to come a bit closer?
I'm pretty close.
Yeah, I'm being as loud as I'm probably going to be. I'm not going to talk too much louder. Is anyone else struggling to hear? No? Okay, I'll try and be a wee bit louder. Welcome. Nice to see you. I've explained to the folk who are already here, there's an empty chair here, which is for conversation. If at any point you have a question that you're feeling bold enough to come and engage in conversation about, then there's a chair here for you. I'm just going to read a little from the introduction to MOLOK. So this is the book that you're all here to help the launch of. It's a little book. Has anyone got a copy already? Yes, you got a copy. And you got a copy. Okay. Well, I'll talk about the actual nature of the book, the physical nature of the book a little more later on. I'm just going to read from the foreword. MOLOK, 21 poems for a time of devouring. 21 poems is a big collection for me. Most of my collections are a bit smaller than that. Forward. I wish these poems were better, but I'm still learning how to write good poetry. I'm sure every poet feels this way. Our vision outstrips our ability and always will. But also, I don't yet know how to write well about atrocity, or genocide, or global desecration, or the feelings of impotence and despair that come from watching state-backed slaughter from afar, or of the privilege and jarring dissonance that arise as I walk down the street in my sweet Devon town and in these high-hedged lanes and up on the moor, working on poems that try to speak to or from or in relation to the world on fire beyond my bubble in one of the old country hearts of empire. So I wish these poems were better, but here we are. First world problems, perhaps. I waffle on for a bit. And then the thread kind of picks up again, saying, sometimes I use the word saint or angel, occasionally even God in my poems. And please don't mistake this for any leanings towards Abrahamic religion or monotheism in general. If you know me, you would laugh at the idea. I use language to communicate, not as a manifesto. Always bear that in mind. What good can my words do? Is that a better volume? Yeah. What good can my words do is how I finish this forward. And as a poet who is interested in being a positive force in the world, that is ultimately the question that continues and continues and continues. What can we do with language, with speaking, with putting words down on pages, recording, speaking at events? What are the limits of our power, and what are the capabilities of what we might do with language? So what good can my words do? This is the constant question for any poet with a beating heart. Some of the poems here are located in that question, and some try to escape from it. The limits and powers of language are my ongoing preoccupation. If I could shout a string of syllables to end the genocide in Gaza, or whisper a song to unclick the ratchet hold of patriarchy, or reverse the worst of climate chaos, I would. Who wouldn't? All I can aim for in this collection is to say what has to be said, lest I lose some of my humanity by remaining silent. And for me in this collection, that was a key place that I had to come back to again and again as I faltered with trying to write words that might have a beneficial effect in the world. I had to come back sometimes to, I must make a sound. My animal body requires that I make a sound, and my way of making sound is through these words, lest I lose some of my soul by remaining silent. And that was kind of the baseline that I kept coming back to. Moloch is in two parts. The first, number one, Gaza. The second, number two, the devourer. And has anyone come across the notion of a Moloch before? Anyone? Yeah, a nod, a hand. Yeah, not much. Okay, so I think in the Old Testament and other kind of similar sources, Moloch is described as a deity that to whom children are constantly sacrificed. So I can't remember the exact details because I'm not a scholar of these things, but there's some angles that suggest that it's not the deity, it's the practice. It's essentially the practice just of feeding children to this deity. And the name Moloch appears in Fritz Lang's Metropolis, if anyone's seen that. There's a part in that where I think, bodies or people are just being fed into this kind of cavernous mouth. It appears in Allen Ginsberg's Howl, which is where I first came across it, I think, as a name for the divinity, deity, being, energy that the young lives of soldiers were being sacrificed to in Vietnam, for example. My Moolok, I've given it a K just to give it a harder sound at the end, is similar to that. Yeah, the exact nature of this character, Moloch, becomes apparent through the book. but is fairly synonymous with the devourer. Yeah, I call it the devourer, and I think most of us know what that means. If there's a clarification needed, it's not a sacred devouring. Those of you who are kind of moving in that kind of mythopoetic world of kind of devouring deities and so on, this is not a sacred devouring. This is the thing that sinks its teeth into the tree of life and sucks out the goodness and the life force and the essence. So, Moloch, I'm going to read a couple of poems, and then we'll see what happens. So I wrote a poem on the 9th of October, 2023, which is the first poem in this collection. And I look back, I don't know whether this is a common experience. I look back on how I regarded what was happening at that time with a certain amount of sense of my own naivety. I'm much better informed now, horribly, than I was then. I knew a certain amount about Gaza. I knew a certain amount about Palestine. I knew a certain amount about the history of the area, about the Nakba and so on, but not as much as I do now. And I wish still that I knew less. 9th of October, 2023, a future written in blood. The fist of the world closes. The bloody gift is given, and the wound widens. History unspirals, and the fingerprints of death dig deep. Fury and destruction, defilement and fire. The only victory is for life's devourer. The child of humiliation is horror. Who has forgotten this? The olive trees are felled. The spring of life is spoiled. We endure on the edge of despair. Come on in. I'm going to start that one again, if that's okay with you. Yeah. You've just arrived after a very long preamble and a couple of poems, one from William Stafford and one from Mossab Abu Toha. I'm just going to read the first piece in Moolok in the book. It's called A Future Written in Blood, 9th of October, 2023. The fist of the world closes. The bloody gift is given, and the wound widens. History unspirals, and the fingerprints of death dig deep. Fury and destruction, defilement and fire. The only victory is for life's devourer. The child of humiliation is horror. Who has forgotten this? The olive trees are felled. The spring of life is spoiled. We endure on the edge of despair. Meanwhile, in murder, the fist spells out the future. Blood, it writes, bring me more. So, 9th of October, still with so much to unfold. But I remember that sense on the 7th and 8th of October of us all standing on a precipice. The first part of this book, Gaza, is roughly in chronological order, although I've not dated when the poems were written. I'm just going to read one more for now from the first part. which is called Red-Beaked Birds Count the Price. And it was an early attempt to try and untangle myself from all the questions that were flying around at that time of, kind of who has acted right, who has acted wrong, what will you condemn, what will you not condemn, and to find some ground behind that. Red-beaked birds count the price. I can't say who should put down their weapons. I can't say who should take up the stick of grief, or who should walk 1,000 miles barefoot and lamenting. I can't claim the earth will become still. The door to safety is rarely found in the death of your enemies. Their grave is only a doorway to another cemetery, tomorrow or in 100 years. Do we have the time to right the wrongs of all our people? The air is loud with the cries and clamor of red-beaked birds calling for revenge, and thick books hold the accounts by which Moolok measures justice. Soon we will all be dead, and at the gate to heaven there will be only one question. How hard did you work to better the children's lives? Far from heaven, I ask you, how many corpses does your God require before the blood price is paid? Friend, that whisper you listened to was not the voice of your God. It was the voice of the devourer, stealing the bitter water of grief your dead deserved and turning it into blood. I'm going to carry on reading for a bit, actually, if that's all right with you. You want to hear some more? Can I read that one again? Does anyone else want to hear it again? Yeah? Okay. Thanks for asking. Red-beaked birds count the price. A lot of these poems, I think, certainly for me, provoke as many questions as they try to answer. But this one in particular. Red-beaked birds count the price. I can't say who should put down their weapons. I can't say who should take up the stick of grief, or who should walk 1,000 miles barefoot and lamenting. I can't claim the earth will become still. The door to safety is rarely found in the death of your enemies. Their grave is only a doorway to another cemetery, tomorrow or in 100 years. Do we have the time to right the wrongs of all our people? The air is loud with the cries and clamor of red-beaked birds calling for revenge, and thick books hold the accounts by which Moolok measures justice. Soon we will all be dead, and at the gate to heaven there will be only one question. How hard did you work to better the children's lives? Far from heaven, I ask you, how many corpses does your God require before the blood price is paid? Friend, that whisper you listened to was not the voice of your God. It was the voice of the devourer, stealing the bitter water of grief your dead deserved and turning it into blood. In a lot of these poems, I ask questions because I'm aware more than anything of my own ignorance and the limits of my right as a white middle-aged man living in South Devon really to pass any comment on things happening far away. And to hold opinions is easy, isn't it? But to write my opinions down has felt kind of awkward and clumsy and inadequate a lot of the time. So in a lot of these poems, I don't make assertions, but in this one, I made some assertions about the door to safety is rarely found in the death of your enemies. I believe it's true. There are things I'll stand by. But yes, it's easy to say things should be like this, things should be like that, this should not be done, this should be done. I have tried to avoid doing that. And so most of the poems are really about my attempts to stand between certainty and uncertainty and to find what I am certain about and then say that. My ongoing working definition of poetry as telling the truth in ways that carry power requires always, as best I can, to check in with myself of, is this true? Do I believe this? Will I stand by this? Not in the sense so much of, is this a verifiable fact? Because I'm a poet, not a scientist. But is this true in both senses of, am I speaking my truth? And is it true like a carpenter would speak of something being true? Is it the true line in this poem? That's very, very opaque way of speaking. I'm sorry. I'm going to read another poem. I'm going to read two more poems, and then maybe we'll have some conversation. I'd love to have some conversation. I'm feeling pretty self-conscious at the moment. It's also lovely to be reading my poems out loud to you. Make no mistake. It's a lot of these poems I haven't experienced reading them out loud to anyone at all. Certainly those two, I don't think they've been spoken out. This one also has not been spoken out. Anyone into Seamus Heaney? Seamus Heaney, poet, yeah, amazing Irish poet. And sometimes when Rosie and I are driving late at night, we'll listen to a beautiful album called The Poet and the Piper. Have any of you come across that? It's Seamus Heaney reading his poems, then interspersed with someone, I can't remember his name, playing the Irish pipes. And it's fucking lovely. It's so delicious. And the poems as well, they have their own trajectory. It's an utterly beautiful album, and especially for that kind of late night driving, dreaming, as the owls fly across and the deer skip out the road. The badgers can make their way along the verge, those that still do. This one is called Digging, and some of you may know the Seamus Heaney poem Digging. And at this point, I can't remember when I wrote this one. It was in the first few months. I'd lost the ability to find any eloquence of my own to write about what was happening, and so I started to lean on the works of other poets to see if I could use them as a kind of scaffold to put my own words on. So I encourage you to find the original poem called Digging by Seamus Heaney. It's an absolute peach of a poem. in so many ways, and just the language is exquisite, and what he's conveying. This is a very different poem. His poem is largely about digging turf and digging potatoes, and his father, and I think his grandfather, if I remember rightly. This is Digging for the men of Gaza after Seamus Heaney. Yeah, the other challenge of reading these poems out loud, of course, is that I'll probably cry whilst reading some of them, which I don't see as a bad thing, but it does make reading them quite hard. Digging. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen rests, smug as a gun. My father grew a good garden, but there's no patch where I rent for a spade to dig into for potatoes. And my father's long dead now, for all he's still living, somehow, in the way I handle those tools. My grandfather was a horseback policeman in Palestine after World War II. Knowing the man, I'm not sure what good or evil he oversaw, but back in Essex, he was a farmer with tall, strong horses, a proud man, concerned at the end that his men should find good lodgings, while his own mind dislodged itself from time. Another home's bombed to rubble. The straining men lever concrete from where the woman's been crushed and the children stand shaking. Coarse hands scrape at stone instead of in the rich earth, digging beyond the broken knee for life, not any sweeter harvest. By any sane standard, these men should be laughing, drinking sweet coffee and playing music, cracking jokes or kicking a ball as the sun sets, carrying sleeping children to bed, not laying them to rest. I watch those strong hands digging for life, for love, for the future's fragments, and pray my sons will never know for themselves just how your hearts break. I've no spade to follow men like you. Between my finger and my thumb, the squat pen shakes. I hold the paper still, men, and lend my weight to the ink. For the life we cannot fathom, I'll dig as fast as I can. One more poem. How are we doing for time, Rosie? Do you know the time? Does anyone know the time?
10 to 8.
10 to 8, okay. Yeah. One more poem, a little bit of conversation, then maybe a little break. Okay, so this one, I mentioned the gig in Gaza, the first gig for Gaza in Totnes. I wrote this the day of that gig. I was emceeing the gig, all sorts of people doing amazing performances and sharing stuff. And I wanted a poem to read. I read that Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear by Mossab Abu Toha, and I wanted a poem. So I wrote this poem that day, and it's quite unlike most of my other poems, and I'm quite pleased with this one. It's called Here's How We Lie. Yeah, this one's for those few that I know in Gaza, or who have relatives in Gaza, particularly the poet Shahad Al-Nami. If by some miracle you're tuned into this. We have occasional conversations in Gaza via Zoom. The family of Khalil Siman, another poet, Biznam, who was at the last Feral Angels Poetry Cafe. May you all be well and your families safe and well. Here's how we lie. Do I need to say anything about this? No. It's about how history is written as much as anything. Here's how we lie. There was never a child, and there was never a house. It must be a trick of the light. The olive trees grow, and the wild herbs wave. Sweet in the evening we lie. There was never a father, and there was never a door in the house that never stood there. There was no praying or singing or coffee to taste. Sweet in the morning we lie. There was never a mother, and there was never a bed, and no one ever gave birth. No one shed tears or dreamed in their sleep. Sweet in the nighttime we lie. History's a dream, and the dead are not ghosts. There's no injustice or bloody genocide. There was never a land, and the bombs did not fall, no slaughter, and this is not hell. Here's how we lie. Grass grows on the graves, and the ghosts gather round to tell tales. Sweet in the evening, sweet in the morning, and sweet in the night of our lies. So that's 4 poems from part 1. I'll probably share 1 or 2 more from part 1 as we go into the second half. And then the scope of the book widens out as well from just Gaza to speaking about or to the devourer directly, and becomes slightly more metaphysical and less focused on that. As we've been hearing those poems, is there anything anyone wants to say or ask, or now's a chance. Doesn't have to be wise or profound. It can be a guttural noise. I'm all in favor of that. Or if you have questions about the poetry or the way of the poetry, then I'm all ears. And there's no need if no one has any questions or things to say. That's also fine. Yeah. Hello.
Well, I'm curious, as you were saying at the beginning about...
Do you want to come up onto the chair and ask? Yeah. It would just be friendly. Yeah. Are we still both in shot? Yeah. Hello.
Well, that's a bit nerve-wracking.
It's all right. Just imagine we're in a
yeah. Just in the field. You were saying at the beginning about, I forget the exact phrase, but about what your words can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I was just wondering, what has your experience been of the impact on you, on your loved ones, on your community, on the people you're in contact with in Gaza? Like, what have you noticed through your writing?
Well, there's a huge background of futility and despair that is kind of ever present. When I share some of these pieces, and people contact me and say, you are able to say what I've been feeling, but haven't got the skills to say, then I feel like there's some worth, at least in the field of those of us who are just watching from afar. When I speak to Palestinian friends and they are grateful that anyone is advocating for them, anyone is speaking for them, and keeping their lives in focus, that makes me feel like there is some worth, even though it feels wholly inadequate. I am under less and less illusion that I will change anyone's mind about anything through these poems. You know, as I go further into the book and kind of get more preoccupied with trying to affect the devourer directly through some kind of magical language, that's an old wrestle that I've been in for a long time. It's like, what can we do? Is there a way? You know, as a storyteller, I'm very aware that in all sorts of places there have been figures within traditional communities whose role it is to tell stories to the elements, to calm storms, to change the way the world is happening to them. And it's like, what of that kind of power could I possibly bring into poetry to work with the times we're in? That's going to be the work for the rest of my life, as far as I can tell, and I don't have any great hope of achieving anything of that. But it's as far as I can tell, it's what I'm here to try.
But there's also that thing of like, you know, it might be that a lot of the people that you reach are kind of already on board with, you know, but it's like you're reaching these edges, and it's like something of like the edge slightly moving, and you know, there might be someone who's just there who's kind of just really moved by a certain way that you've put something, and they kind of step a bit closer into this. You never know.
Maybe when I started writing those poems, I think that's what the sense I had of was, you know, essentially writing poetry as propaganda in the best sense of like, maybe I can, you know, bring some more information, or kind of bring some more people over to this perspective. It became more important to make kind of animal noises in response to what I was, or kind of to express what I was feeling, to try and write what I know other people are feeling in the field, and it became more of a like, we need to sustain one another's spirits through speaking the truth, and my own keep my own soul intact by not remaining silent. Those became the imperative things.
And also being in the position of privilege in that we can do the speaking on behalf, not necessarily on behalf, but it's also like taking some of the burden of those that are in the midst of trying to survive. And it's like, we are not in that direct battle.
Totally.
We can carry some of that burden and
completely, as a,
do the shouting and screaming for them. And
you know, as someone in my eminently privileged position of having a voice, of having some eloquence, of running a publishing house. I remember the first issue of Clarion, the magazine, came out. I was writing the editorial 2 or 3 days after 7th of October, and it was something like, right, okay, clear whatever thoughts I had about where this magazine was going, it needs to become something that serves some purpose in that arena, because otherwise, what am I doing? But yes, it's like my job as a poet, you know, I think I might speak about this in the second half, like what is it to be a poet? But part of my job is to use my gob for the good. And in this circumstance, that means writing about this stuff as best I can. And it has become hard. It became harder and harder as the book goes on, to try and find ways of speaking that weren't just screaming. You know, and there are a few poems that are basically just screaming.
Has anyone approached you and sort of shared that it has changed, or like sort of moved them in an unsurprising? No. Fair enough.
Not that I can remember. Anyway. Maybe one day.
Live in hope. Thank you.
But thanks for the question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming up. as
Yeah.
well. That was much nicer than just talking to you in the audience. Yeah. Anyone else? Nothing bad happened. Or should we have like a 5-minute, get a breath of fresh air, get yourself a drink if you want, refreshment kind of break, and meet back here. What time is it now? It's 8 o'clock now. 8:05. Can we aim for that? Oh, it's 3 minutes past 8. Okay, fuck it. 10 past. Yeah. Okay, 10 past prompt though. And you and the rest of the world, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and Rosie will relay them to me. If anyone wants to buy books in the intermission and beat the rush at the end, there are books over there. You can choose how much to pay. We need some intermission music. I'd prepared a nice slide that would now be in place for the YouTube, but then forgot that the complexities of transferring on a USB stick between my Linux system and my... We have the big ones back on. Thanks. No. Anyway, tech got the better of me, so you'll just have to watch and listen to all that stuff. Hello. Yes. And nice to be in something that's kind of generative and creative, rather than just the passive receiving of aura. Yeah. Yeah. No, thankfully I haven't come in. No one's coming with that. Yeah. Do you condemn Hamas? I was packing up the car, but it's kind of Well, with that, I always go back to this. How many grown up? I've never there is absolutely. Okay. Focus, if I remember right. Yeah. That's the first time I heard some I'm just using the livestream. Okay, nice. But also the limits of my ability to get call out poets build relationships and actually get. Should we reconvene? Time marches. Ding, 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 ding.
This is the process that you can do more or less, and so it's much more done. These lights are a nightmare. I did do. I can't necessarily remember that will switch to the same light. We do, yes.
The covers are research. We should get started again. Now everyone just wants to chat and drink, read and buy books, which is not a bad thing. Okay, the books will be there at the end as well. I know there'll be an ugly rush. For those of you listening online or watching online who don't already know, you can get your copies of Molok at feralangels.com, and all the books are priced on a sliding scale. Online you can choose one of 4 different prices for all the books. There's also an ebook version of Molok, which is very beautiful actually. I was pleased with how that came out. And yeah, both of those are at feralangels.com. Yeah, we ship worldwide, apart from to Europe, because it's just too complicated. Thank you, Brexit. Okay, are we in? You got the lights working over there, well done. Shall we begin again? Okay. Okay. So we had 4 poems from the first part. And yeah, the first part is a bit bigger than the second part, so I'm going to stay with the first part for at least 2 more poems. There are some poems that actually work better on the page than they do in speech, which is unusual for my poetry. So I concentrate on the sounded poem rather than the poem on the page. But in my attempts to find language at the moment, it has forced me to experiment a bit more with structure and with kind of breaking lines on the page and including kind of factual quotes in the bodies of poems and things like that. Bless you, Tia. I'm going to read 2 from this. There's one poem called Writing Genocide, where most of the text is struck out, and I have no idea how to read that poem out loud, so I'll just point you towards that poem. One of the challenges as a poem working in the world of social media, but just online discourse around things, is that as soon as you mention Gaza, as soon as you mention genocide, the visibility of anything that you write just vanishes, which rather defeats the point of putting posts out if you're trying to do something with your language. And that's been an experience that, you know, anyone speaking up around Gaza has experienced over the last almost couple of years. And at times it's actually been maddening as an artist trying to speak truth, to actually get it out into the world, and seeing you're seeing each post just disappear without a trace. It's been quite a thing. So we've all found ways of trying to get round the algorithm by kind of coding our language to not speak about Gaza specifically. Anita, you've got a question?
I know that poem is so powerful, so beautiful. I was wondering, could you read two people so that the person who reads the cross-out bits and somebody reads?
We could try that. Do you fancy it? Then we got your glasses. Let's talk my homework. Do you want to try? Come on, Claire. Okay. You can if you like. Yeah. But the mic is here though.
It's very, very short shorts.
This is Claire. Thank you, Claire.
Right, okay.
So how do we do it, Anita? I read the bits that are struck out.
If you want, I can read the bits that are struck out, and you can just read the.
Okay.
Yeah, you get the easy part then.
Just however you think it should be. Yeah.
Okay, you read the bits that aren't struck out. I'll read the bits that are struck out. If you can't see from there, but yeah. So it's called
Writing.
Genocide. Everything that I read out is struck out. So it's called
Writing.
Genocide.
I can
No longer play the games you need to
play.
To get your work seen on the tiny screen, pretending that
Everything's fine.
in the world, that Israel's not murdering a whole population before our eyes.
I can't
Use the right code to trick the system, not say the word genocide, not
speak.
the word Gaza, nor say Palestine, not mention the massacres or the apartheid or infanticide. If you want me, I'll be in the pages of a book, writing
True words.
in the margins beyond the censor's gaze and pasting poems to walls.
Everything's
On fire and nothing's.
the same as before. Please
Speak out. Please do not.
keep quiet.
Thank you.
Suggestion.
Thanks, Anita, for that suggestion. I'll read one more from the first part. Called On Holding a Horse's Head at 5 a.m. And this poem makes a bit of sense of the cover. The beautiful horse's head on the cover is by fantastic illustrator and artist Eskamash. And I'm delighted to have her work on the cover of this. The blue flowers on the cover, if you see there, fading into the front. They don't make sense from this poem, but there's a couple of poems that they start to make sense in. On Holding a Horse's Head at 5 a.m. As the sun rises over the green hill, and every uneven oak is carved by light into a great perfection, a horse whose name is Despair lies darkening the floor of my cold kitchen with its sharp ribs and 1,000 wounds that cut the morning sky. We moved house while Rafah was being bombed. I put white stickers on boxes while tents burned, and then 3 men and a van carried our clutter and debris of utility and love as the bombs sucked lives out of the world. I look out towards Wooden Cliff and Waterleet, holding a handful of words against the light. Look, our ruin of a garden, thick with bindweed, the moor beyond, nutcrackers, hollow tor, 7 lords' lands. Just a pocket full of granite and green beneath a thickening cloud as I sit crouched on the floor, cradling the horse's heaving head against my neck. The blackbird is exultant on the rooftop. The busy sparrow returns to its nest in the laurel, while the swifts soar into the roof corner, and the horse foams at its lips and its eyes roll with fear. I drink my coffee, and the horse struggles to breathe, and I want to turn away, not hear its rough cry, or put my slippered foot in the dark pool of blood beneath our old table, stacked with last night's curry boxes and an unfinished bottle of fizzy wine to celebrate our move. First drops onto the land, of course, as we remember our good manners, or try to. Meanwhile, the horse blood soaks into the floorboards. Meanwhile, the fat sparrows bring food to their hidden nest. Meanwhile, the sunlight slants across the meadow, and the spring of the world coils and uncoils, and I live my ludicrous life and lift the horse's head in my hands. I press my face against its fading starbrow and renew my vows in the shadow of its heaving heart. Gods, show me again how to live with one foot in paradise and the other foot in hell. The grey cloud breaks and the day's rain begins. I honour the dying and the day with words whispered into the horse's wet red ear. I breathe a speck of life into its gaping mouth, just enough for us to live by, and gather my words like charms and fury as I turn towards the storm. So a lot of these poems are really just trying to come to terms, as I've said before, with my own helplessness and the limits of my power in the face of such horror, and the difficulty, the absurdity, the privileged absurdity of carrying on our normal lives while genocide in Gaza is happening. And as I move into the second half of the book, I expand a little, because as horrific as Gaza is, there are countless horrific things happening in the world. There are countless atrocities being undertaken, whether we speak about Ukraine, Sudan, the Congo, all the unknown, barely reported horrors that happen far away and for one reason or another don't capture the media's attention or the public gaze as much. And the question of what can I do as a poet about the world, you know. It's a kind of grandiose question. What can any of us do about the world? The role of a poet isn't any different from anyone else's, but of course. But when I became a poet about 20 years ago, I became a poet kind of overnight, with a kind of background of, you know, a couple of decades before that, probably. But I became a poet when I fasted on a mountain called Cadair Idris in Wales, and came down writing poetry when I hadn't been writing poetry when I went up. Fasted 4 days and nights up there. They say with Cadair Idris, it's one of the places in Wales, you spend a night on the top of Cadair Idris, you come down either mad, dead, or a poet. And whilst not necessarily exactly true in all cases, certainly it had a profound effect on me. And although I had written some poems before, the poems I was writing when I came down were utterly different from anything I'd written before. And my sense of myself and what I was about in the world was completely different from what it had been before. And in the course of that 4 days and nights, I went from being someone who knew they were a writer, but was secretly trying to win the Booker Prize and write literary fiction for kind of intellectuals' bookcases. That's the kind of approval I wanted. In the course of that fast, I discovered, realized, however it works, that I was something that I had two words for, which was warrior poet. Yeah, a warrior poet. It was like, okay, I'm a warrior poet. I don't know what that means in the middle of this fast, but that was the phrase that kind of I glimpsed in the kind of core essence of my soul. And ever since then, 20 years, 21 years, I've been trying to become that to the best of my ability. And that means engaging with the world beyond my own little poet world, you know. As a poet, you can be pretty self-absorbed and get away with it. You can write about your own internal experience and people will dig that stuff. But for what I'm trying to do, I am interested in the outside world, and I want to do good in the outside world. And so the desecration of the earth in all its ways, the violations of life force that are rife across the world, what might we do through language to be of assistance in that sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle battle against this force that I call the devourer? And sometimes that's a very simple set of things to think about. And sometimes it's a more metaphysical or kind of archetypal, mythopoetic kind of reality. But the second half of the book, I start to move into that kind of territory a bit more. And I want to read you a few pieces from there now, not moving on from Gaza, but widening. Hope and despair have been the continual questions with me. I'm not known for my optimism about the world. I wrote a poem at some point over the last year, which people quite liked because it was quite short, I think. People like short poems on the internet. You don't have to do that really difficult thing of moving to the next slide. It's a kind of meme-based reality out there. But maybe I'll save that one for the end, because that's a good one to save for the end. Okay. I don't know which one to read. going to read the first poem from section 2. It's called Writing After Despair. It's easy to talk about despair. It's an easy word to throw out. But there have been times, I mean, probably for all of us, there have been times of genuine despair over the last couple of years, but particularly despair at my writing having any worth in the world, as well as despair of there being any kind of bright future for my children or my children's children. This is called Writing After Despair. It owes a debt, which is fairly obvious in the first stanza. Out beyond ideas of hope and despair, there is a field. Life is so short, and most of it I have wasted on worrying how fat I am, how strange and broken my heart, how to live, how to be a human or a man. A jackdaw is strutting in the rows of drying hay. The sparrows are busy in the lilac. Look, all this while the world burns. I imagine a hare through the language of wonder and listen for the first skylarks as the sun arcs over the hill. We are given a song and turn it into a syllabus, a sentence, or a list. This, that, something else. Crazy orphans carrying our miracles in blind bags, looking for wonder, listening for the song. Tomorrow, perhaps, I'll put down the bag and sing. Out beyond ideas of hope and despair, there is a field. You'll find me there. You'll find me in the tall grass there, lifted towards the skylarks and running at the field edge with the mad and hopeless hares. Sometimes when you read a poem, no matter how it is on the page, you end up reading the version that was there before you edited it. I'm going to read a couple more and then open up for questions before I hit you with a couple of big ones at the end. This is called Two Universes, a spell-breaking poem. There's a pretend universe in front of the real universe, but it takes effort or skill to see through it, or maybe sometimes luck. And if we're not careful, we might end up believing the fake universe is the real universe. And then we would be in all sorts of trouble. Who would be that careless? I know. Sick societies cast spells to keep us believing such nonsense and make a lot of noise to keep us deaf. But all the time, we are looking for the other world. There are 100,000 dancers in the real universe, urging us to see through the trick. If you get quiet enough, you might hear their feet or the bells and shells they wear, but you might also hear them in the heart of life's mayhem. When your husband leaves you, or your wife, or someone dies or is born, or when you lose your job and can't pay the rent and it looks like winter's too bleak to bear, or in the middle of 4 days fasting, dancing on a mountain, maybe. What we call sacred is the real universe singing to us. Listen for the dancers. Listen for the song. Peel back the counterfeit universe and learn to hear the sweet sound of reality. Everyone you love is waiting for you there. And then this one. A thousand thin verses fall from the sky. This one's called. And this is for Rosie. A skeptical eyebrow. Every day, I wake up and listen for the sound of the change. Every day, I listen at the door for the sign that the time has come at last to put down our sad disguises, that the war is over, and the hole in the floor where we crouched to hide our magnificence can be filled and closed at last. Every day, 1,000 thin verses fall from the sky and cover the forest with their stark messages of hopelessness. Every day, I bring flowers to your door and whisper, soon, love, complicit in the equations of uselessness and the never-ending theatre of our despair. You could have risen up 1,000 times, but for my thick foot on the hem of your dress, but for my insistence that the war goes on and on, but for my own grim swordsman who watches all the dancing and says, war has come, the graves will be full, the line is broken, here we must not rest. My love, I'm so sorry. I could not stuff my ears or cover my eyes with hope thick enough to lie. It was me. I laid a place at our table for the war and all its desolate tales. I see jet planes and I hear bombs, but you heard the wildflowers calling and the sweet song of the river at dawn. How can I go on hearing only war when you tell me the oak trees are dancing? The impossibility, for me at least, of staying in the place of constant horror and despair when also the world is alive and beautiful, and how to navigate that reality. You know, it's some of us kind of phase kind of some of that, then some of that, then some of that, then some of that. So is that the way? I don't know how to walk in these kind of times. So that's what I'm trying to explore in some of those poems. Any sounds, shapes, movements, questions, utterances? It's a lot. I can feel that there's a lot of poems there. Anita.
I'm just thinking about a clip which maybe other people have seen of a Palestinian musician with a drone overhead, and he starts to hum the sound of the drone, and there's this children, and music happens, and it's extraordinary. It's about there to music and joy. Yeah. Resistance as life, as
Yeah. So in my cosmology, in the cosmology of this book, Molok's great triumph comes when despair has filled the world, when there's no room for anything other than despair. And my relationship with hope, anyone who's listened to me speaking kind of down the last 10 years or so on various podcasts and things down the years, one of the recurrent themes that crops up is kind of hope or despair, and this notion of hopeless hope. You know, how can you, what kind of hope can you maintain? And it's really the hope of being, for me, the hope of being in love with the world, the hope that allows life force to find ways to come up through the cracks or appear through the clouds in those moments of horror as well. If nothing else, they are a defiant fuck you to that cloud of despair that Moolok would have the whole world consumed by. And they also have their own magic to fight back, I think. Yeah. Anyone want to come up and sit in the chair and have a conversation about anything? Doesn't have to be the subject matter. It could be the poetry. It could be about writing. It could be about publishing. It could be anything.
People online can ask questions.
They can. Are there any questions there?
Have any comments? Have any questions as yet? Yes, the man says, what a beautiful watch.
Ah, bless you, Khalil. That means a lot to me.
Do you speak your poetry to music sometimes?
It has happened once or twice in my life, but no, very, very rarely. It's something I'd love to do, but yeah, no, it hasn't yet. How are we doing for time? 8:45. Perfect. Little books, and it blows my mind. You know, it always has done. You know, you look at a bookshelf of books, and they're just kind of whole universes there, but they pack a lot of power. A book of poetry is an extraordinary, and it's good poetry, an extraordinary powerful charge. And like I said at the beginning, I don't want to just overload you all with the poems, but I'm very pleased with this book. The physical nature of this book. The cover is riso printed in 2 layers, a blue layer and a burgundy layer, by Calvert's in London. And I think it's coming out very nicely. And if you bought it and smell it, you'll notice it smells quite oily. That's from the riso printing. And like all our books thus far, it's printed on 100% recycled paper. And Feral Angels Press, who is the press that thus far I have run, we are inches away from becoming a workers' co-op. So that will probably happen in the next couple of weeks, which is very exciting. We have all sorts of plans for new things. Khalil Siman, who was just commenting there, who's an amazing Palestinian poet based in Amsterdam. We've been working on a chapbook of his poems, which will be coming out in the next month or so as a start of a series of chapbooks. So that'll be the next thing coming out. Clarion, if any of you have been reading Clarion, the poetry magazine that comes out roughly quarterly, full of extraordinary poetry, that comes out from Feral Angels Press as well. So yes, do explore the other poem creations that we put out. I'm going to read 2 poems now from the second part. If you've still got appetite for a couple more, yeah, a couple more, and then we can just hang out a bit, unless there are any questions. So Moolok, my question for the last 3 years in the kind of subtle, energetic worlds in which I'm interested has been, how can I use language to either make a weapon to kind of diminish the power of Moolok, yeah, a humble endeavor, or to awake some force in the world that can oppose Moolok, yeah? If that doesn't make any sense, then please don't worry. And I've been trying to write this poem, kind of speaking directly to Moolok, to this energy, for years and years and years. These next 2 poems I've been writing for a very long time, and they are both extremely imperfect. And all the poems are imperfect, obviously, but these ones are very much works in progress. So Moolok, the poem, I had to resort to kind of all sorts of shenanigans on the page. If you look at it at some point, different sized fonts, different font faces, which as a typographer is a kind of an aesthetic challenge to start messing around in that kind of way. But I shall read you Moolok, and then I shall read you Clarion, which is an important poem for me, and then I'll read you Blackbird, and then we will be done. As a working poet, there's a strange trajectory, a strange energetic curve to the act of creation. And a launch, as well as being an opportunity to celebrate and support and to come together and kind of be in the field of the poems, there's an aspect to it which is also, for me at least, reminiscent of an offering back to the source, to the place that the poems come from in the first place. For me, as I conceive it, the other world, which I glimpse when I get a line of a poem, or the little thread that I pull, which then becomes a poem. The act of speaking these poems out and the discomfort that I feel in so doing is a kind, yes, like I say, an offering back to the source. And so, yeah, I've come to believe that it's a necessary part of creation as well, of the creation of a book of poems. I've never read this one out loud, not even to myself. So let's see how it goes. And Moolok, if you're listening, we're coming for you. We always have been, and we will win. Moolok. A curse on the death bringers and their endless hunger, which can never be filled. I call them the devourers, and you, leering behind them, I call the devourer, the force that feasts on life. I'm tired of sweetness. Let me shout from the shadows at your gala dinner all you like, devourer. In the meantime, I'll be digging your grave. At your table in the glass ballroom, they serve the world you hate as a feast, liquefied for your guzzling into a sickening soup of souls, and what was once good on this earth funneled into your mouth. Gallon upon gallon upon gallon, streams, rivers, hospitals, and lakes full of life poured into your upturned mouth, spilled over your face, turned towards the sky, away from the desecration you've made of the world. I say I don't know why, but I do. Moolok, your hunger roars across the parking lots and the forests and the graves. All the wealth is not enough, and the power is not enough, and the suffering of your enemies is not enough. The burning babies, the charred bodies are not enough. The powerlessness of the people beneath you in your unholy pyramid is not enough. Into the mouth, 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 into the mouth. Feed it all, the blood and the babies and the children and the bodies, the dead piled up in mounds, buried beneath grass. Exhume them, devour them, push them in, bulldoze them in to your many mouths that are one mouth. Into the mouth, into your fucking mouth. Gaza, gobble it up. Sudan, gobble it up. Yemen, the Congo, West Papua too, gobble it all up. Myanmar, Kashmir, North Korea and Tibet, gobble up Africa, gobble up North America, gobble up the South, gobble up Asia as well. Stuff it all in. Scrape the remains of Europe onto your plate. Slobbering and laughing, you retch it back up broken and dead into the bucket you call this life. Gobble up the Maori, Aborigines, Inuit, Sami and San, all the people close to the earth. Gobble up the Roma, gobble up the Arabs and the Jews and the Christians and all the black, white, brown, yellow, pink, green and blue people. Eat them all so there's no one left who remembers that it wasn't always like this, who might speak true words or have a dream of freedom or paint a forbidden picture or plant the seeds of paradise. Eat the animals as well, one by one and two by two, like Noah from hell, onto the train and into the oven, into the mouth. Then eat the land. Suck up the dark earth, the red earth, the ice and the sand and the springs and the forests and fjords and the desert and the oasis and the grass. Gobble it up, stuff it in, leave everything we love into your hateful mouth, and you'll still not be satisfied, because your hunger will never cease until you devour yourself and time has its end. And this you know. And so your claim to endlessness is your greatest lie, because you cannot be sustained, and so you hate eternity. And then, now, there is no more blood to spare, Moolok, and if there were, still I would not let you feed. I don't remember sleeping, and when I woke, I was afraid. But now I stand with my sword and my shining brow, and I say, turn back, Moolok. Enough. Give up. No more. Who will stand against the devourer? Who knows that this life is not our own, but a lent thing, a life borrowed from life? Break the spell. Step out of the dream. Give your life back. There is no time left in which to continue forgetting. The Moloch mouth gapes, and the waiting staff of hatred serve up another course. The devourer feeds, and the mouth bites deeper every day. Who will stand against Moloch? Who can close the mouth or wake the ones who will? Who will stand against the devourer? Rise up now against that emptiness. Find your place among your kin. You may not know it yet, but your bones remember the way. You can resist this soul-dead life of silence. I think that carries the sense of what I wanted to say. And yet, also inadequate. It's easy to rant, you know, and it's tempting, and sometimes it's useful. But I want to do more than that. Okay, one more. This is called Clarion, or Do You Remember? And this one, okay, at this point in the book, this is where I am trying to make a change. The way I see it, the way that I can make a change, not in terms of changing people's beliefs, is to hopefully at some point in some of these poems awaken a little glimmer of life force that's been sleeping, or give someone permission to lean more towards their own life and become more truly aligned with the set of possibilities that they might have shelved for a while. And so this poem, Clarion, Do You Remember, is really speaking to that part in the reader, the listener, in you, in me, that that might remember. Clarion, do you remember? I remember you as you were that golden day when you stood without fears and you were glorious. Lit with a light you remembered at last from 1,000 years gone by in triumph and ruins. I could see your crown then and the sword on fire planted at your feet. I see them now still, for all that you and I are more mortal now than we were that day in our radiance, in all our wild glamour and our wickedly splendid joy. Do you remember that day? You knew your true name. You stood to your full height, and the world shone, and the giants trembled, and the withered trees grew blossom in 1,000 ravaged lands. Come home, my friend. You were never exiled. I need you by my side today on the cold field of this war. You marvel. Come back now. The world has missed the gifts you were bringing to the great feast that we'd prepared. My beloved companion, most esteemed adventurer, now it is time for your brightest colors. You have starved us long enough of wonder. Look at the tangle of our confusion. See the extremity of our distress. Wake up, friend. Look, time is short, and Molok's lieutenants lay claim to the earth. Radiant one, lend your weight to the great effort now, lest evil and the devourer triumph. Rise up and remember that day. Stand up to your full height once more. The withered trees are empty, and all the giants are abroad. Stand up and renew your promise. Remember our vows of service in the oath room of eternity. Don't pretend to not know me when we meet at last. We stood together in 1,000 battles. We fought the great foe relentlessly. Stand by me again. Together we shall know victory. Not life will be renewed if only you will stand. I said that was the last one, but there was one, the short one, which I am going to finish with, unless there are any comments or questions. This is called Blackbird. All night long the world burns, and still on this March morning, a blackbird with its beak full of moss and straw rests on my balcony rail and catches my tired eye. Optimism has no attraction to me, and I'm well known for telling bad news loudly. But the truth is, I'll give up my own wild hope only when the last blackbird on earth stops building its nest in spring. And that's the truth. So there's lots of poems I haven't read. Wouldn't want to give all the secrets away. Probably getting time to finish, but any comments, questions? Mafia.
Yeah, just a question around what you talk about language, using language as MOLOK, and language as either written or spoken. It's kind of, and the sense then, when you were saying about putting words on the internet and being siphoned off, but do you think the medium of, I don't know, it's just like there's something about this MOLOK which is about the siphoning of power away, even by just trying to put it on this, the effort to do that, and the effort to be present in body, like making that commitment to be alive in the body, whether that is the way to bring power, when you make that commitment to make that the boundary of poetry.
As I understand your question, or the comment, it's about how you, where you're locating the center of the effort. If the putting the stuff on social media is part of the general expansion of your life force, so that yes, it appears on social media, but also there are other ways, then that feels less sucked away than spending all my time trying to. That's not the thing.
No, it's kind of like what's the source of this MOLOK? What's the source of this this amnesia? The amnesia that's carrying forward in our human life, where we can in this kind of current of, there's just something about the isolation of ourselves and the sound of voice, and even words which for me land in sort of the sound of some words just land, like maybe it's the Anglo-Saxon words, very simple words land in my body in a way that's different when it's kind of like in a more, what's the other word? The Latin, the Latinized version of the word lands in a different way from this, like stupid. So it's just, and so it's just the landing of and that memory, the memory of how sound lands in the body, because that's the amnesia for me. It's like I don't have that enough.
Well, it's the sound magic of words and the way that the subtle fibers of reality hum and sing when truth is spoken, but also when eloquence is present. Whether that's with the stark shock of Anglo-Saxon words, or the wriggling weave of more kind of Latin things. That's the interest for me. Is like how can we make those subtle fibers sing in more powerful ways, and I think we have largely forgotten how to do that. We have these memories of or stories of how it might be done, or how it has been done in different places, with syllables that carry power, or stories that carry power, or spells, abracadabra to, all the spells of the kind of the occult world and all of that. But largely we have forgotten. Modernity does not prize those qualities, and would have us believe that they don't actually exist, that essentially language is for the transfer of information rather than singing to one another or to the world, or being sung by the world, depending on how we're standing. Yeah. We can do better. We will. We are.
Can I go on from that just a little bit? So I had the incredible honour of being with an Indigenous elder in Australia a few years ago, who was speaking in a gathering, and at the time I had a really bad back, so I was lying down. And she spoke very simple words, and I felt a vibration.
Mm.
She repeated the words, the vibration got stronger. So as she spoke, you could feel the earth responding to this very simple language. And she wasn't using her language, she was using English.
Mm-hmm.
But she was an elder in the true sense of the word. So what I'm saying is, it is not lost.
It is not lost.
It is not lost.
That's,
We have to
yeah,
just listen.
absolutely. That's really good to hear. I like that a lot. And yes, and it's the arrogance of empire that believes that everything has been lost. It's still around. And for myself, I want to go and learn how to use language in ways that can have that kind of power. And yeah, I'm interested to see where that journey will go. Thank you for that. I think there was on here. Yeah.
I'm interested in the kind of microcosm that we all are, of what's playing out in the world, and the Moolok as a part. And I just wonder what you, because it feels like there's a battle in your poetry.
Mm.
I'm wondering if that's what Moolok needs.
So, as I understand the question, it's a question that I've been kind of rolling with, kind of going round and round and round with for a long time. Of by even framing it as a war, am I just feeding the what, putting it on Molok's terms in a way? It's a huge subject. And I don't have anything very clever to say about it right now, apart from the way, again, in my cosmology, the way that I'm approaching this, the way that Moolok would have me wage that war is by becoming a hardened soldier. I will wage that war on my terms by becoming a flamboyant bird, a flower singing to the universe. That's, yeah, I'll choose the way of it. But yes, so does that
makes sense.
Yeah. Anything from YouTube?
A very pragmatic question. Is it being recorded?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Thank you all so much for coming. It's been a real delight to read the poems, however uncomfortable it is as well. And I feel extraordinarily honoured to have the opportunity to share the poems with you, and to have people interested in my work as ever. Yeah, I think we could probably call it a wrap there. Go and buy like hundreds of books for all your friends, because I'm really broke. Yes. What else to say? Yeah. Just, I think, how long are you open for?
The bar can stay open for as long as people
Okay.
need it, really. I mean, as far as 10:30, but
Okay.
that is what I'll
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Okay. We're not going to run out of
Yes.
time, so feel free to stick around. And yeah, feel free to ask questions, buy books. Thank you to Ella back there. Ella, who packs all the orders and does most of the communicating with customers. If you've ever ordered a book from Feral Angels Press, then it's Ella who will have packed it. Thank you forever for all the work you do. Thank you to the Moor Imagination Collective for hosting this. It's a wonderful place if you ever get the chance to come here in Buckfastleigh. It's amazing what they're doing. Thank you, Rosie, for making sure that I had that I ate before doing this, and for your help setting up, and my sister, who is looking after the boys tonight, so that we could come and do this without them heckling and ridiculing me for going on for too long. I think that's probably enough for now. Bless you all. Bye bye, world people.